This episode brought to you by Peter Wood's Museum of the Impossible.
What's a Museum of the Impossible? It's gonna be like Harry Potter meets Ripley's Believe It or Not. It'll be a one-of-a-kind, themed, interactive space where people can experience the impossible. But I need your help. To get the project started, I've set up a Patreon over at museumoftheimpossible.com. If you're able to throw a few bucks my way each month, we can build it together. Thanks for your support, and I can't wait to welcome you into the Museum of the Impossible. Welcome to the podcast of The Impossible. I'm Peter Wood, and my guest today has been a working pro in the DMV for over 4 decades, performing for AT&T, Verizon, State Farm, and currently all of the Liberatore's restaurants throughout Maryland. Please join me in welcoming back Mr. David French. Hello, hello.
Hello, Peter.
Did I say Liberatore's right?
You did.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I saw it at written, and then I froze. I'm like, okay, it's not like liber. Yeah, okay. So Liberatore's.
Perfect. Liberatore's.
I performed at one once before I knew you. I forget what gig it was, some private party, something. I didn't check your turf, but I forget. I think that was up in the one near Towson, wherever that is. The Timonium one. Yep. But yeah, it's a lovely restaurant, and you regularly show up at all of those, right? Or rotation.
Yeah, I've been rotating through them.
Okay.
For many years, I started actually at the Eldersburg Liberatore's, which was actually their first.
Okay.
And there are 4 brothers.
Okay.
Each brother now runs a different location.
Oh, neat. Okay.
So that was kind of an easy sell. Hey,
yeah.
Brother Dante down here in Eldersburg.
Right.
What do you think, Mr. Pino in Westminster?
Okay. Right.
So
cool.
And it's funny because even though they're brothers and they all have the same business model to a degree, they're all different mindsets.
Sure.
It took me years to get into Westminster, even though his younger brother and I were established. Right. He wasn't sure it would work.
Right.
But eventually I broke him down.
Nice. Okay, good.
So to your point, I just got to rotate through all of them. There's which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, it's
I call it my Libera tour.
Ah, nice. Yes. That's good. Yeah. But you don't just work at restaurants. We talked about that a lot on your first time you were here, but I would love to sort of gab about some of the other ones, because you do stand-up shows. When you do a stand-up show, is it typically a family audience, or do you have an all-adult, like a corporate something, or is it sort of the same?
Both.
Okay.
My primary my passion has always been the close-up.
Okay.
The restaurants, it just kind of is conducive for that.
Yeah.
Family shows, absolutely. Birthday parties, absolutely.
Sure.
I do have an adult stand-up show, which I don't do often enough.
Okay.
And I don't say often enough. I just don't get the call for that as much. It's more family.
Yeah.
Which, I don't equate it to the kids' birthday party circuit so much as family show.
Right, exactly.
Gears towards everyone. A lot of it is close-up material. It's the stuff I do in the restaurants, but it can play larger.
Yep.
Absolutely can play larger.
Yeah.
There are other shows that I do.
Yeah, it always, when I'm somewhere doing specifically strolling up close something, often I'll hear, "Oh, I wish the kids were here."
Yeah.
And I try to take it as the compliment that it is intended to be, rather than the potential insult of like, "Wait, you're not enjoying it? Like this is I'm doing this for you, not
right.
And I'm sure your kids would enjoy it as well, but that's not the primary audience right now."
That's a good point. As you know, with your daughter, as a parent, it's not necessary. And I used to think the same things. Like, man, where's the respect? I've been working on this for years, and this is for the adults. Well, when they're saying that, I realized they just want to share that moment with their kids.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like anything. If you go to a neat outside a park, I wish my kids could see this.
Right.
It's not necessarily an insult. I used to feel the same way. It's like, wait a minute. Yeah. But now, I just wish I want them to share the experience I'm having.
Right.
Not necessarily, and you could do the same trick.
Yeah.
You don't have to do the hippity hop rabbits for the kids. You can still do whatever you're doing. So I take it, as you said, a compliment.
Right.
That they want to share. Or sometimes, I wish my cousin was here. I wish my husband was here. I wish my neighbors are here. Whatever. Right. Kids are just lumped into that thought process.
I think that's fair. Well, and it's probably also the, we all got our start we've done enough in the trenches birthday party shows, and you can sort of for some of them are good. I mean, there are a lot of practitioners out there who are great at it, but then we also know that a lot of times you're just kind of filling a gap in a party schedule, and it isn't. It's not like a plumber where if you do a poor job as a plumber, it will leak, and then people are like, what are you doing? That you were a terrible plumber, Whereas if they hire, a birthday party magician who hasn't done a lot of practice, then it's like, okay, well, that wasn't so great, but whatever, you get what you pay for,
Yeah, but it depends what else they've seen.
Yeah, that's
If
fair.
they have anything
That's
to
fair.
compare
Sure.
it to. I know you had the great Zucchini on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That guy's, he's number one in his industry. I
Yeah,
don't
sure.
fan or not a fan, I love him.
Yep.
So the point being is he knows his business so well that
Right.
I don't think he has anybody that can compare to him.
No.
So if you've seen him, anything else is below the line.
True. Yeah.
With all due respect.
No, well, especially for a 5-year-old. I mean, like
Perfect.
the
His
point
market.
is,
He's got it perfect.
if a 5-year-old sees his show and your show, the 5-year-old's going to love Zucchini's show much more.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
Yeah, he will. But yeah, so I like to hear compliments or comments that say,
Yeah.
I wish my XYZ person was here.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and how often do you get to do a formal close-up show, like a where, again, for our friend listening, that's where like you're sitting. It is a show in that it lasts for 20 to 45 minutes, but it is a close-up show in that you are seated, most of the audience is seated, and most of them aren't more than 8 or 10 feet away. Ideally?
That's right. Not as often as I'd like.
Okay.
Only because a lot of the venues that people will hire you aren't conducive to that.
Right.
When I work restaurants, I do sit a lot with
Okay.
folks. And if I have time, I will do 10-minute sets.
Nice.
If there's no wait line and they're just
Yeah.
having coffee, whatnot. Now that's about as close as you're going to get to consistently doing it.
Right.
If I'm doing a home party, I'll try to sell it that way.
Sure.
I just did one the other night. It was actually for a 10-year-old birthday party.
Nice.
10 year
Okay.
olds. They get it. They get
Yeah,
this stuff.
that's a good age. Sure.
And I said, you have a dining room table. We can all gather around. Sure, let's do it. We gathered
Awesome.
around. The adults stood around, and we did the show.
That's cool.
And the 10-year-old girls, they loved it.
Yeah.
It's because you're on their level. You're not doing the 5-year-old stuff, which they
Sure.
would, just below them.
Yeah.
But to your question, I've been selling more in-home parties that way.
Right. That makes sense.
It makes sense if the home's conducive. I mean, some people say, well, I don't have the room for it, but
Yeah.
and then you don't do it.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I enjoy doing those the most. That's my favorite type of magic because
Yeah.
you can really bring out everything you need.
Right.
You're not limited to what's in your pockets when you're strolling.
Yeah.
You could do it. And Denny Haney from Denny's Magic Shop
Sure.
turned me onto that, and he showed me some of his lecture notes years and years ago, and it just turned my whole head around to how to do a private party.
Denny's lecture notes?
Yes.
Or okay.
Denny's
yeah.
lecture notes,
Yep.
and he and him.
Yeah.
And I used to do private parties, corporate parties, holiday parties, and I used to stroll, and that was what I knew.
Yeah.
And his thing was set up a table, get some chairs in front of it. Now
yeah.
you're not limited to what you carry. You can do your cups and balls. You can do your chocolate. You do your larger effects, if you will.
Yeah.
And it works great.
Right.
It's a great concept. Some of the old timers used to do. Don Allen used to do it that way at a private party.
Makes sense.
They come to you.
Yeah.
And what I liked about that, and I'm going off on a little tangent.
No, that's good.
What I really enjoyed about that is because if you think of a guest's perspective, they're sitting down at a banquet table, and like the restaurant, here comes a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you? What are you doing here? Oh, you're part of the magic. Well, I don't like
Right.
magic. I'm just eating my chicken over here.
Right.
That's annoying. So if they come to you, they're interested.
Sure.
They're
Yep.
going to grab a seat at your table. Now let's go.
Yep.
Let's have some fun.
Yeah.
So those are fun shows to do.
Well, yeah, and especially if they hear if you're working a party and you've got some table turnover. I mean, again, a private house party, but where you do a 20-minute set and then sort of excuse those folks. Other people heard the reactions from those folks, and so now you kind of end up marketing yourself to where now you're the hot ticket. Well, we got to get over and see the magician at some point,
Right. Yeah, exactly. You have those built into your show cues where they're going to scream.
Right.
I ask them to scream. I tell them to.
Okay.
If this card has your name on it, it's a signed selected card, you'll agree to go crazy with thunderous applause.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, they do.
There we go.
You know?
Yep.
And if you're strolling at a big party, I do the same thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, there's something going on over there.
Right.
I hope he
Right.
comes here. I don't know what's going on over there. I'm going to see what's happening.
Sure.
So that's just a play. I think we all do that, or a lot of us do that.
Yeah. No, I think it
Makes good sense.
yeah, it's good. It's good for the person who hired you. Often doesn't get a chance to see you as much as they would like to, if at all, and because they're doing other things. And then so that is an audio cue that okay, this is going well. But then also there is something about the audience who's just sitting there. If they're reminded that this is live happening just for them, they're supposed to respond and enjoy it.
Right.
Makes sense.
And I always try to put myself in that position.
Yeah.
If I'm at a wedding, which I do wedding receptions,
Yeah.
cocktail hours. And if I'm at a wedding and there's a magician coming, personally, I would love to see it.
Sure.
That's fun.
Uh-huh.
But, a lot of people just don't. It's just like, this is out of place. This is odd.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to understand. We talked about this the last time I was on.
Yeah.
Kind of read the table a little bit and see if they're even interested.
Yeah.
But if you're if you're doing the set show, you're coming to me. I know you're
Yep.
interested.
I've recently started using a catering analogy when I'm sort of talking to a client about the different flavors, and I'll talk about how strolling magic is like past hors d'oeuvres, where I'm walking around and they might catch me or they might not, and then a stand-up show is like a plated dinner where we all sit down at the same time and we're all given the same thing. We have sort of a communal experience. And then the table, which, either close-up table or boardwalk table, I say is like a carving station where if you want some, you can go over there and get some. But if you don't, that's fine. They're not going to come to you and try to force feed beef, in front of you.
That's a good analogy.
And it is, it gets them on the same, like, oh, okay, that's something we're all familiar with. We've been doing events where those are the three different ways of food being served. And so then trying to be like, all right, so, we're going to serve the magic. Which way is the best to serve the magic?
Well, right. And that gets into the perfect segue too, is how you market or how you sell the service when someone does call you.
Sure. Yeah.
They think they have an idea that
Right.
is not going to work,
Right.
or vice versa.
Yeah.
So you have to try to educate them. I've got 10 people. We want you to stroll for 3 hours. Well, that's just not going to work.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
So that's where you do the set show,
Right.
for example. But it's funny too. You tend to, at least in my experience, if you're strolling, you get a certain amount of respect. Or if you're doing the stationary close up, as we call it,
Okay.
it's just respect. But you always get the respect if you're on stage.
Yeah. True.
That's the big deal.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Well-
I just don't get any respect.
but I still feel like it might be earned a little bit better. I mean, how many times have we heard somebody say, if I saw that on stage in Las Vegas, I wouldn't believe it, but I'm right here,
Yeah.
and that's one of the best things, right?
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons to everything.
Sure.
But close-up magic up close is exactly that. You're right
Yeah.
there. You're like Eugene Berger used to say, who's one of our magicians that we know.
Yeah.
You're so close you could touch them.
Right,
And I
right.
do. I don't.
Right.
Not these days, anyway.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. You hear that? I'm right here.
Right.
I on TV it's one thing.
Sure.
I'm right here, and that to me it's a compliment.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that you're doing something that's fooling them or that you're that great, but it's just like, yeah, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
Because we're down here together, we're in the trenches, and I just think that's fantastic when they say that.
It certainly feels more visceral. If there's a show with programmed lighting and sound, and it can be too slick. There's something about this is just a guy in a deck of cards. How is that possible?
Yeah, true. But then the other flip side of that is it's a guy with a deck of cards.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
suppose.
this Vegas, this is really neat. Look, the cop
Right,
is
right.
flying. My gosh, all the stuff he does. Whereas we're just kind of
Yeah.
organic with what we do. We've got the deck of cards, we got the coins, we got whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
But it all boils down to Peter too. I mean, and you know this. I've seen you work, and you're fantastic. You've got a great
Thank you.
repertoire. You've got a great.
That's why I had you on.
That's right. No, you've got a great
Thank
got a
you.
great relationship with the audience. You're very likable, and so it really doesn't matter what you do.
Sure. Right.
If they like you, you're fine. Danny taught me that too.
Yep.
If they like you, you're fine.
Totally.
So close up stage, as long as you're doing your job right.
Sure.
you'll be fine.
Yeah. Do you find that there's a challenge of people not having imagination? If they see you in the restaurant, are they able to picture you at their house party, or is it just like, oh yeah, well that's where he lives. He exists at the restaurant. That's what he does.
That's a wonderful question, and you're right. It's more the first part. They can't imagine you outside of that environment.
Sure. Yeah.
It's much like a bartender. Do you ever think to hire the bartender for your private party?
That's fair. Yeah. Sure.
Not usually. You go to a catering company.
Right. Right.
So, but there are people that do.
Okay.
They say, wow, this would be great for my 50th wedding anniversary. This is wonderful. And there are people that don't. So there are things you can do to market that. I mean, within the restaurant. I don't do this much anymore, but a lot of times I would say, I was doing a private party the other night and I did this trick.
Yep. Yeah, sure.
So that gets in their mind.
Plant a little seed,
If they don't think of it on their own, to me, if they think of it on their own, they're more apt to hire you, of course.
Sure.
They've thought of it. It's their idea.
Yeah.
And you're not coming across as too salesy.
Right, exactly.
Particularly in a restaurant. And again, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, Peter.
No, that's fine.
Just wait.
That's right.
I'm
got
not
plenty
there,
of tape. We're good.
There's a lot of reasons to be in a restaurant. One is a showcase, but I'm not there to sell my services as much as I am to enhance the guest's experience.
Gotcha.
I'm part of the establishment.
Sure.
So if they want to hire me outside, great. I'm welcome to it. I'm happy for it. But I'm not going to sit there and push it I'm not going to use the restaurant's time for my marketing purposes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A hard sell.
Soft
sell's fine, but I don't hard sell.
Yeah. What sort of percentage of business card handout, like out of 10 tables, how many do you think end up with your direct contact info?
Maybe. Gosh, that's a good question. I've never really thought about it, but not as many as you'd think.
Okay.
And I say that not to say that I'm not doing a good job, but they don't think about it.
Sure.
I would say maybe 1 out of every 20.
Okay.
If I'm to guess.
Yeah.
And again, I don't hand them out frivolously. If they ask, I'll give them one because now I know they're interested.
Right. Right.
But it's not as much as you think because, like you said, people have limited imaginations.
Right.
And they're there to eat. Oh, that was nice. That was fun. Okay.
Yeah.
Where's the check?
Right. Right.
So
yeah.
If they're interested, they'll let me know.
Well, and like you said, I mean, it's the lie that you tell yourself is the strongest, or the best salesman is the one who's already inside your head. Where
That's right.
If they think it's their idea, he would be great at the Christmas party,
Mm-hmm.
then now they're that much more likely to book you as opposed to if you were just sprinkling your business cards on every table.
That's true too, and it's almost I don't want to come across desperate. My card.
Yeah, sure.
For no reason.
Right.
But not only just it's their idea, but they're more apt to follow up on it if they're interested.
Sure.
Which leads me to I don't advertise.
Right. Yeah.
And if I was a full-time performer like you are, and I respect the full-time guys like you wouldn't believe, it's just I could never do it. I don't have the mindset.
Sure. Yeah.
But if I were, I would do all of those things that you gentlemen and ladies do.
Right.
But for me, it's a part-time thing. I take it very seriously. I enjoy it. I have a big, strong passion for it. But if I don't get that party, I'm okay.
Yeah. Yep. Sure.
I love doing the restaurants.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of guys look at restaurant magic as a lower stepping stone to something bigger.
Oh, sure.
And that's fine too.
Yeah.
I don't look at it that way. This is
that's
show.
The goal.
The restaurant is the show.
Nice.
So, and that's where I kind of stay within my mindset.
Yeah. No. And also that gives you the freedom to turn things down that aren't a great. If somebody says to you, hey, my 2-year-old is turning 3 next weekend, maybe you could come do your show there. It's like, I tell you what, let me recommend some people who, would do a better job at it.
Sure.
So you can be pickier about, and like you say, it is only sort of the diehard, fans, I guess I'll say, who saw you and liked you so much that they're thinking about how great you would be at whatever event that they're planning.
Right. You just brought up a thought in my head. Is a lot of parents. Every child is special.
Sure.
Every parent's child is more special.
Of course.
Yes, my child's 3, but he understands everything you're doing.
Right.
He will.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No.
And that's not to put the child down. It's just not their level.
No, absolutely.
It's just not advanced enough. So that's a perfect example of something I would say, well, I've got someone who's better suited.
Sure.
Simply because it's just not, I don't think this will work.
Right. That was my paranoia about being a parent for the first time. I had so many experiences on that end of it where like this this father thinks their kid is really cute and really smart, and I disagree. And so I'm trying. We tried really hard to reel that in.
Well, they are in your mind, and they should be.
Sure.
They're your children.
In
they
your
are.
mind, absolutely. Yeah.
But, they don't. They're not going to be as special as
right.
you think sometimes.
Well, I've said before, helping out at behind the shop, 2 different magic shop counters where I hung out, and you would regularly, probably at least once a month, a grandparent would come in and say, "I need something for my grandchild. They're interested in magic. They're 4, but they're very bright, and it was all, whatever the age was, it was always like, oh, but they're really smart. They're a good reader, And afterwards we'd always just crack up about, no one ever comes in and says like, I've got this 12-year-old, but they're not really, what do you have for like a 6-year-old? They're not the brightest crayon in the box,
Some of them could very well be. But kids are sharp. This. Kids are very sharp. And, I'll be doing some of the technical stuff at the tables, and they'll call me right out on it. Yeah, I saw that.
I do kind of like the honesty of working for kids. Yeah. When you work for grown-ups, they may still, even if they see or suspect something, there's too much politeness to just blurt it out. Exactly.
Well, I don't know.
It depends.
Some of the places.
Alcohol helps.
Yeah.
But so do you have that remind both kids and alcohol? Do you have issues with that? No. Ever or
no?
Okay.
And I don't mean that to sound odd. Typically, the restaurants I work, I'm there early enough. Number one.
Oh yeah, that helps.
6 to 8, 7 to 9, something like that. So I'm not in the drinking crowd hours so much.
Sure.
And plus, a lot of the restaurants I work are restaurants. They're not bars.
Right.
So, and they have a bar. They have a service bar, or they have somewhere people can go and have a drink. But typically, no.
It's not why people aren't going there to get wasted and then forget their playing card.
I've had some weird situations, but again, the nice thing about what I do in a restaurant is I can just walk away.
Yeah, true. That's
not in a rude way, but if somebody's really out of line, thank you for coming in. Nice to meet you. Have a great evening.
Yeah.
Then I'll go to the bartender and say, you might want to watch.
Yeah.
That's your job. It's not my job.
Totally.
So that's the nice thing. I can walk away. Whereas if you're doing a set show and somebody's belligerent, you got to deal with that.
That's
you can't just walk out the door.
That is cool. Yeah. No, both parties have the ability to say no to you, wanting, do we want to have this interaction or not? And
and the nice thing too, and I'll say this, the restaurants that I work or choose are either very family oriented, or they're a little bit upscale. And they're not going to put up with that kind of stuff.
That helps too.
So they don't get that kind of crowd.
Right.
So that helps.
Yeah.
But I had an interesting thing the other night too in Frederick, the one where your friend.
Oh yeah.
I was at the bars, behind the bar. Sometimes I work behind the bar and I'm doing a set.
Cool.
And I did the setup where, if this card has your name on it, you'll go crazy with applause here at the bar.
Right.
The guy, it was a couple. The guy says, yeah, he's ready. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be fun. We're gonna get the place going. Well, I've never seen this, Peter. He took his shirt. Here's a weird T-shirt. He wore something like yours. Took his T-shirt off, started swinging around like a terrible towel, And I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
I've never seen that before. I mean, this is a nice place.
Right.
And I'm like, he's getting kicked out.
That's weird.
He's getting kicked out.
Yeah.
Or I am.
Sure.
I don't know what happened.
For instigating.
But that very, very rarely.
Nice.
That was fun.
Well, if our friend listening wants to get a David French T-shirt to take off and swing over their head, then the place to go see. No, you don't have T-shirts, but if you want to take off your own T-shirt and go to one of your shows, no, don't do that either. On Facebook, David French, you can go take a look whenever you have public shows in the area. Again, this is around the Carroll, Frederick, Howard, rough region. Then folks can come see it in action, which would be a lot of fun. And be sure to tell you in advance, right? That you listened in on this, and then that way make sure you don't miss them.
I'm happy to see you. Just send me a note.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was great. I had a fun time, and
thank you.
It was good. Yeah, thanks for hanging out down here. And that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast of The Impossible. But for behind the scenes access to my Museum of the Impossible project, as well as info about public shows and private events, social media, all that stuff, you can head on over to peterwood.com. I'm Peter Wood. Thanks.